Chapter 105. Here Now. Summary. While they may not have been able to make a difference on the warehouse ship, they were proving they could here. Blackwhip curled back towards Izuku after unceremoniously dumping a pack of exhausted guards in the small storage room. Dynamite's harsh orange light briefly lit up the dim space as he blasted the handle from the inside of the door.
Come on, Deku. Let's meet up with your crazy friends and take down the last of these fuckers,
Dynamite said, kicking the remnants of the door handle out of the room with a clang. Izuku nodded and backed into the hallway, just in time to avoid the door being slammed close.
Aren't all of our friends crazy?
Izuku asks, as they jog towards where the mess hall lay in the blueprints up on Izuku's datapad.
Katsuki scoffed. No. The gremlin is crazy, and she infected you and Sparky with that brand of crazy. Raccoon Eyes is still somehow sane, while Pink Cheeks is actually insane. There's a difference. Whatever you say, Izuku shrugged. So, how are we going to deal with so many people? At this point, I think most of them are going to try and run when we bust in, and we don't exactly have the numbers to keep them in. Don't worry about it, nerd. You and Hobo Sensei already came up with how to find the ones that try to run and hide in the forest. And I think we've already proven that these shits are no match for us out there.
You're right, Izuku said, letting a little tension fall out of his shoulders.
I just hope the biorhythm scanners can find them all. It's a big forest.
Looking like he wanted nothing more than to flick his forehead, Katsuki replied,
This planet is empty except for this base. They're gonna stick near it, so they can try and fly away once we leave. It'll be fine, nerd.
Mina watched the last group of aliens begin stretching and massaging their weary muscles, stiff from being in a cramped cage for so long. From the dozen or so cages, there were 34 people standing before them. 2 of them were the slug people from the warehouse ship, and 3 were the aquatic sentients from the ocean planet they'd visited. Her focus, however, kept flitting back to the one kid in the group. Fuzzy, like they were coated with velvet, they were wrapped up in the arms of a similar-looking alien who appeared to be their parent. The fact that they weren't alone, that they had someone to cling to, placated the anger she felt at seeing another kid in a cage. She would do what it took to never see that again. The vibrant purple of the parents' eyes met Mina's own, and they were shifting their child behind themselves ever so slightly. It made her heart clench, but she just moved her gaze away, not reacting outwardly. They weren't the only ones who had shied away from her and Ochako after they revealed their quirks and homeworld. Ochako's face seemed to pinch every time she noticed it, though her warm smile never faded. It was clear that she'd never really experienced this kind of discrimination. Out of their whole crew, Mina suspected that she and Izuku were the only ones who struggled growing up, thanks to their quirk status. Though she's sure Izuku had it much worse, there were plenty of people growing up who judged and feared her mutations. She's shaken out of her thoughts when the slug alien that vouched for them approaches her and Ochako, leaving a faint trail of slime wherever their tail brushed the ground. The second alien, this one purple wearing a glittering yellow dress, with a black feathery boa not too far behind. They both have what Mina can only assume are pleasant expressions on their faces. Their slug-like features and 2 sets of eyes not exactly translating one to one. The pink one from before speaks once the pair settles in front of them. I already know I said so, but I'm glad that you and your friends are okay. It broke many hearts when we thought the ones who first serenaded that horrid place did not make it out alive. We just about sung ourselves raw that night in a symphony in your honor. Mina was definitely going to be telling the others about that, especially Izuku. It was amazing how that lullaby had started a whole tradition in there. Thank you for that little bit of enchantment, and thank you for freeing us here. Any longer, and I fear we would have missed the crowning of a new slug queen. Slug queen? Ochako asks, blinking. Honestly, Mina thinks it's just par for the course at this point.
Yes,
the purple one says, voice deeper and commanding.
as queens ourselves, we were on a diplomatic mission not too long after last year's crowning when we were taken. It's customary for queens to attend a new queen's coronation, and we feared that we wouldn't be attending anymore.
Mina nodded along as the woman spoke, while Ochako seemed to try and wrap her brain around their species' governing system. With a giggle, Mina says, Now that we saved a princess and 2 queens, what do you think is next? She elbowed Ochako with that last question. Dragon? Ochako replied. I think we beat up a lot of those rescuing the princess. I'm hoping for a court jester. Ochako giggles at that, before her expression shifts back to something more serious. She looks at the 2 slug aliens with melancholy eyes. We're sorry we left all of you back on the warehouse ship. We were just so weak and couldn't. It's fine, darling, the pink one says, grasping Ochako's hands in her stubby ones. You didn't need to help anyone. Most people would have left that place without a second thought. And now here you are to help when you're strong enough to make a difference. Without realizing it, the woman had soothed an injured part of Mina's soul, a jagged little edge that snapped out of place when they had to leave so many people to suffer, despite the fact that there was no way they could have helped everyone. To hear that one of those people that they left behind thought that, it soothed those broken pieces over. Thank you, Ochako sniffles. That means a lot.
And that's the last of them,
Izuku says, wiping the sweat from his brow. It had been harder work hauling all the sentience they'd taken down to various closets and supply rooms than it had taking them down. He would have just carried them all with Black Whip at once. But when an unnoticed pinch from Dynamite revealed to the others that the quirk was starting to numb his arms, he was forbidden from using it for the rest of the raid. Even Mei had ganged up on him.
Fucking finally!
Dynamite shouted, scaring the still conscious sentience in the room before them. Less shouting, more closing door, Mei reminded him, sparking her pocket welder twice for emphasis. Her method of securing doors shut was very thorough. Down the hall lay a smattering of welded doors filled with Trellin, just waiting for the Galactic Alliance to pick up and probably claim credit for. That was okay, though. They'd already gained the reputation they needed to join the guild. The facility was clear. They had the data, and the people the Trellin had been trafficking through here were freed. That was what mattered. There were only a few more things they needed to do before they left the planet behind and took back to the stars and towards home again. Sweep the forest for stragglers, and help the people in the bay get home, whether that be with the government or making their own way on the ship parked on the roof. He thinks it's funny how before this, he probably wouldn't have even thought twice about letting governing bodies help after an operation like this. But with how the government handled the Trellin, or rather, didn't handle them, he suspected that there were more than a few people who had lost whatever faith in the government they had. He certainly didn't trust them as far as he could throw them. And while he didn't know how they felt, the important thing was they got to choose where they went and who they went with.